In our cozy little home, life often felt like a well-orchestrated symphony, each day flowing into the next with a comforting regularity. I'm Eliza, a dedicated dentist whose life revolves around caring for others, both in my clinic and at home. My husband, Tom, a man whose past life had etched lines of worry and contemplation on his face, was often my partner in quiet evenings spent discussing everything and nothing. This particular evening, however, held a different tune. As I entered our home, the aroma of simmering stew greeted me, a sign of Tom's attempt to provide some culinary comfort. I found him in the kitchen, looking more troubled than usual. "Hey love, what's cooking?" I asked, trying to inject some lightness into the heavy air. Tom glanced up, managing a weak smile. "Just some stew." "Eliza, we need to talk about something important." "It's about Alex." Alex, Tom's son from his previous marriage, lived with his mother in a different city. Our interactions were limited to brief, somewhat formal exchanges on Skype, his shy demeanor never allowing me to know him beyond the basic pleasantries. "What about Alex? Is he okay?" I queried, concern lacing my voice as I took a seat at the kitchen table. Tom joined me, his hands clasped together, the weight of his words gathering like storm clouds. "He's fine, health-wise. But he's been given a chance to follow his dream of forming a band. He's really passionate about it, Eliza. But, well, he needs our financial help." I leaned in, listening intently. "How much does he need?" I asked, my mind already sifting through our finances. Tom hesitated, then uttered, "Around $10,000. It's for the equipment, some studio time, things like that." I took a deep breath, the number settling in my mind. "That's a significant amount, Tom. But if it's for his dream, tell me, have you seen any of his work? Is he serious about this path?" He nodded vigorously. "I've heard some of his music during our calls. He spends every spare moment he has on it. I believe in him, Eliza." I watched the earnest look in his eyes, a father's love mingling with hope. "All right, Tom. If you believe this is right, I trust your judgment. Let's support Alex. But, let's also ensure it's a wise decision. We should probably have a chat with him, understand his plan a little better." Tom's face lit up with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Eliza. This means the world to him, and to me. And yes, let's arrange a call with him soon." As we sat there planning our next steps, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and apprehension. I was about to invest in a dream, in a young man I barely knew, hoping that our contribution would set him on a path to success and fulfillment. It was a risk, but perhaps, in the grand scheme of things, a risk worth taking for family. Months slipped by after the first financial aid for Tom's son, Alex. Life resumed its usual pace with my dental practice bustling and Tom's work steady. Then one evening, as autumn leaves began to paint the ground in hues of amber and gold, Tom approached me with a familiar hesitancy in his eyes. "Eliza, can we talk about something?" he asked, his voice carrying an edge of discomfort. I nodded, setting aside the book I was reading. "Of course, what's on your mind?" He took a deep breath, his gaze avoiding mine. "It's about Alex again. He's making great progress with his music, really diving into it. But he needs more support, another $10,000. I felt a twinge of surprise, my eyebrows knitting together in concern. "Another $10,000? But we just provided for his initial setup. What does he need this time?" Tom's fingers fidgeted with the hem of his shirt. "He's looking to upgrade some equipment, maybe get into a better studio. It's just that, things are getting more serious for him now." I sighed, a sense of unease settling in. "Tom, I understand wanting to support Alex, but we need to be mindful. We're talking about a lot of money here. I earn well, but these are hard-earned savings. We need to think about our future too." Tom's face turned a shade darker, his voice raising slightly. But it's for Alex, Eliza. My son. Don't you think he deserves this chance? His tone stung, a hint of accusation lingering in the air. Of course, I do, I replied, my voice firm yet calm. But I also believe in responsible support. We can't just keep handing out money without understanding the full picture. The conversation grew heated, our words a volley of concern and frustration. Then, suddenly, Tom's demeanor shifted from defensive to outright angry. You just don't understand, Eliza. You're not a parent. You don't know what it's like to want to give everything to your child. His words cut deep, echoing around the room. I recoiled, hurt flashing in my eyes. Tom, that's unfair. I've been nothing but supportive. But we can't be reckless. And your son is almost an adult, he needs to learn financial responsibility too. Tom shook his head, his anger boiling over. You're just being selfish and greedy, Eliza. You don't understand what family means. With that, he stormed out of the house, leaving me in a stunned silence. His accusations felt like a slap, the word greedy reverberating in my mind. I sat there, trying to piece together the fragments of our conversation, the harmony of our life now disturbed by a growing discord. Days turned into a week, and Tom's absence stretched on. I was left to ponder the situation alone, my concern for Alex's future wrestling with my dismay at Tom's reaction. When Tom finally returned, his demeanor had softened, but the underlying issue remained unresolved. I'm sorry, Eliza, he said, his voice low. I shouldn't have exploded like that. It's just, I want to do right by Alex. I nodded, accepting his apology but feeling the distance between us. I understand, Tom. But we need to be a team in this, especially when it comes to big decisions. Reluctantly, I agreed to the additional support for Alex, my heart heavy with apprehension. Tom's immediate switch back to his affectionate self was a relief, but also a reminder of the fragile balance we were treading. The cycle of financial requests for Tom's son had become a recurring theme, straining not just our bank account, but also the very fabric of our relationship. Just as the leaves began to shift to the fiery colors of fall, Tom approached me again, his demeanor more desperate than before. Eliza, we need to talk about Alex again, he began, avoiding my gaze. I set down my book, a sense of dread filling the air. What is it this time, Tom? He fidgeted, clearly uncomfortable. It's a big opportunity for him, a chance to go on a tour with his band. He needs our help, Eliza. He needs $30,000. I was taken aback, the figure echoing in my mind like a bad joke. 30,000? Tom, this is getting out of hand. We've been supportive, but this is too much. Tom's face flushed with frustration. But it's for his future, Eliza. Can't you see? He could make it big. I stood up, feeling the tension like a physical force between us. And I want to support him, but not blindly. We've never even seen him play. We don't know if this band is real or just a whim. We need some kind of proof, Tom. His voice raised, a note of panic creeping in. Why can't you just trust me, Eliza? Why do you need proof for everything? I replied, my own voice rising in response. Because trust is based on honesty and responsibility, Tom. And right now, I'm not seeing a lot of either. The room was thick with unsaid words and mounting frustrations. Tom then dropped a bombshell that shattered any semblance of normalcy. If you don't give this money for Alex, I don't think I can stay in this marriage. I felt as if the floor had fallen out beneath me. Are you blackmailing me, Tom? Using our marriage as a bargaining chip for money? He didn't answer, his silence speaking volumes. I realized then that our issues ran deeper than I had ever imagined. This was about more than money, it was about respect, trust, and the balance of power in our relationship. I need time to think, I said finally, my voice hollow. This isn't something I can decide right now. Tom stormed out, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts. I knew something had to change. We couldn't continue down this path of ultimatums and financial demands. That night, as I lay in bed, the space beside me cold and empty, I realized that I was at a crossroads. One path led to giving in to Tom's demands, sacrificing my principles and possibly my financial security. The other was fraught with the unknown, potentially leading to the end of my marriage. In the quiet of our home, I sat down with my laptop, a sense of unease stirring within me as I navigated to Alex's Instagram page. The images that greeted me were far from what I expected of a struggling musician. Lavish parties, designer clothes, exotic locations, it all painted a picture of luxury that belied the story we'd been told. I needed answers directly from Alex. I called him on Skype, ensuring the video recording was on, ready to confront him about the inconsistencies. He answered, his face a mask of casual indifference. "Alex, we need to talk about the money your dad and I have been sending you," I began, my tone firm. He shrugged nonchalantly. "What about it?" I didn't mince words. "I've seen your Instagram. Your lifestyle doesn't match up with needing money for a band. I'm not sending any more money." His face changed then, the cool facade slipping into something darker. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have connections, people that can make life very unpleasant for you." I felt a chill at his threat, but I didn't waver. "Alex, I've been recording this conversation. Threatening me is a serious offense. I can take this to the police." The bravado drained from his face, leaving behind a pale, frightened boy. Tears welled up in his eyes as he realized the gravity of his actions. "Please, no. I was just talking big. I'm not in any gang. I don't want any trouble with the police." His sudden shift from intimidation to desperation made me pause. He was on the verge of revealing something more, something that might explain the bizarre turn of events. Sitting back, I watched Alex's face, tear-streaked and pale, as he prepared to spill the secrets he'd been holding onto. "All right, Alex, let's hear it then. What's going on?" Through sobs, Alex began to unravel the web of lies. "It started off small, just me wanting some extra cash. But then I found something about Dad." I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "What did you find about your dad, Alex?" He wiped his eyes, taking a shaky breath. "I found out he was seeing someone, not just anyone, someone from his past. I took pictures, threatened to tell you unless he kept sending money." My world spun with his confession. "Tom has been unfaithful? And you've been blackmailing him?" Alex nodded miserably. "Yes. I never meant for it to get this far. I wanted to live a certain way, and when I found out about Dad, it seemed like an easy way to keep the money coming." I felt a mix of anger and pity. "Alex, do you realize how serious this is? Blackmail is a crime. And your father, how could he?" He sniffled, looking down. I know it's messed up. I don't know, I got in too deep. But I swear, Eliza, I don't want to cause any more trouble. I'll stop. I'll figure something else out." I sighed, the weight of the situation heavy on my shoulders. "And the band, the tours, all of that was just a lie?" He nodded again. "Yeah. I'm sorry. I like music, sure, but there was no band. I just needed a story for the money." I sat back, processing everything. My husband had been unfaithful, my stepson a blackmailer. The foundation of my family was cracked and broken. "Alex, I need to talk to your father about this. And you need to sort yourself out. This isn't the way to go through life." He nodded, a small glimmer of understanding in his eyes. "I know. I'm sorry, Eliza. Really." As the call ended, I was left in a silent house, the echo of Alex's confessions ringing in my ears. The lies were unraveling, revealing a painful truth I could no longer ignore. I knew the next step was confronting Tom, but a part of me dreaded what that confrontation would bring. The man I had built a life with was a stranger, and our marriage a facade. I needed to gather my strength, for the conversation ahead would be the most challenging of my life. The house felt unbearably quiet as I waited for Tom to return. The ticking of the clock seemed to echo my racing heart, each minute stretching longer than the last. When I finally heard the turn of the key in the lock, my stomach knotted with anxiety. Tom entered, immediately sensing the storm brewing in the air. "Eliza, what's wrong? You look like you're about to explode." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Tom, we need to talk. Now." He hesitated, then nodded, taking a seat across from me. "What's it about?" I didn't beat around the bush. "It's about Alex, Tom. And it's about you. I know everything, the blackmail, the affair." Alex confessed. Tom's face paled, his eyes widening in shock. What? "Eliza, I can explain." I felt a surge of anger. "Explain? How can you possibly explain lying to me, allowing your son to blackmail you, and using our money to cover up your affair?" He looked down, shame etched across his face. "I was afraid, Eliza. Afraid of losing you. I thought I could control the situation, but it spiraled out of control." I shook my head, my voice rising. "Control? You call this control? You've been living a double life, Tom. And all the while, lying to my face." Tom's voice broke. "I'm sorry, Eliza. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't know how to handle it." I stood up, my hands trembling with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Tom. Your son was threatening me, using gang connections to intimidate me because of your mistakes." Tom stood as well, reaching out to me. "Please, Eliza, let's try to work this out. I'll do anything." I pushed his hand away. "Work this out? How can I possibly trust you again? How can we go back to how things were knowing what I know now?" He had no answer, just stood there, a man broken by his own deceit. I knew then that our marriage was beyond repair. The trust that once bound us together had been shattered by lies and blackmail. "Tom, I need you to leave," I said, my voice cold and final. He didn't argue, just nodded silently and walked out, the door closing with a soft click that seemed to echo the closing chapter of our life together. As I sat back down, alone in the echoing silence of our home, I felt a profound sense of loss and betrayal. But amidst the pain, there was also a flicker of relief. The truth was out, painful as it was, and now I could begin to heal, to rebuild my life on a foundation of honesty and self-respect. In the aftermath of our confrontation, the house felt empty, the silence a constant reminder of the betrayal and deceit that had unfolded. I knew I couldn't just let things end there. There needed to be consequences for the lies and the financial manipulation. It was time for a legal reckoning. I found myself sitting across from a lawyer, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. "Mrs. Johnson, I've gone through all the information you provided," he began, his tone professional yet sympathetic. "I need to pursue legal action," I stated firmly. "Not just for the divorce, but for the recovery of the money Tom used for his blackmail payments, and for the emotional distress this has caused me." The lawyer nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We can certainly file for divorce on grounds of infidelity and emotional distress. As for the money, we'll need all the evidence you have of the transactions and any communication between you and your husband or stepson regarding this matter." I assured him I had kept meticulous records. I trusted Tom completely. "Never thought I'd need these as evidence against him," I admitted, a sad irony in my voice. He offered a small, reassuring smile. "You're doing the right thing by protecting yourself and your assets. This won't be easy, but I'll be with you every step of the way." The following weeks were a blur of legal documents, meetings, and court appearances. Tom looked defeated each time our paths crossed, the reality of his actions finally hitting home. At one such encounter, he approached me, his expression one of regret. "Eliza, I never wanted it to come to this. I'm sorry." I looked at him, the man I once loved, now a stranger. "Sorry isn't enough, Tom. You made your choices, and now we're both living with the consequences." The final court session was the hardest. I sat there, listening as my lawyer laid out the case, detailing the emotional and financial toll of Tom's deceit. When the judge finally spoke, granting me the divorce along with compensation for the misused funds and emotional suffering, I felt a bittersweet relief. As I walked out of the courtroom, the weight of the past months felt both heavier and lighter. I had stood up for myself, faced the legal battle, and emerged with a sense of closure, albeit a painful one. But the journey wasn't over. There were still pieces of my life to pick up, a future to rebuild. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but as I stepped out into the sunlight, I felt a glimmer of hope. I decided to visit my old friend and confidant, Martha, who had been a pillar of support through my ordeal. As I entered her cozy living room, she greeted me with a warm, knowing smile. "Eliza, look at you. How are you holding up?" she asked, ushering me to sit. I sighed, a small smile playing on my lips. "I'm okay, Martha. It's been tough, but I feel like I'm finally seeing the light at the end of this long, dark tunnel." Martha patted my hand gently. "You've been through so much, my dear. But you handled it with such grace and strength. I'm proud of you." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride myself. "It was hard, Martha, facing Tom in court, unraveling all the lies. But I stood up for myself. And now, it's time for a new beginning." Martha's eyes twinkled with encouragement. "So, what's next for Eliza Johnson?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the question. "First, I think I need some time to heal, to rediscover who I am outside of this whole mess. Then, I want to focus on my work, maybe even take a vacation, something I haven't done in years." "Sounds like a plan," Martha replied warmly. "And remember, Eliza, this is your chance to rewrite your story, on your own terms." Her words resonated within me. Yes, I had been through a storm, but now I had the opportunity to chart my own course. In the following weeks, I immersed myself in work and self-care. I took up yoga, started reading more, and even planned a solo trip to a place I'd always wanted to visit. Life without Tom was different, but it was mine to shape. One evening, as I was preparing for my trip, the doorbell rang. It was Alex. He stood there, looking nervous and remorseful. "Eliza, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, face to face. For everything," he stammered. I regarded him, seeing not the aggressive young man from our Skype call, but a remorseful, lost boy. "Thank you, Alex. I hope you've learned from this, and that you're making changes for the better." He nodded earnestly. "I am. And I owe it to you for standing up to me. You helped me see how wrong I was." I smiled slightly, acknowledging his apology. "Take care of yourself, Alex. And make good choices, okay?" As he walked away, I closed the door and turned back to my own path, feeling a sense of closure. The journey had been arduous, but I emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The sun set in a blaze of glory, its vibrant hues a promise of the new chapter awaiting me. A chapter of healing, growth, and self-discovery. A new horizon was before me, and I stepped forward with determination and hope, ready to embrace whatever the future held.
"What's with that expression, Elaine? You look like you've seen a ghost," he sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I took a deep breath, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. "Derek, I can't do this anymore. Your constant belittling, your complete disregard for my feelings, it's suffocating me." Derek laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "Oh, please. You're being dramatic. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. A woman of your limited capabilities should be grateful." Grateful? The word echoed in my mind, mocking me. I thought back to the days when we first met. I was 27 then, full of ambition and dreams, working diligently in the marketing department of a bustling firm. Derek, with his charming smile and seemingly kind demeanor, had swept me off my feet. We met at a company event, and he was all I had ever wanted, or so I thought. But now, standing in our meticulously kept living room, I barely recognized the man before me. The kind and attentive Derek I had fallen in love with was gone, replaced by this cold, calculating person who seemed to take pleasure in my misery. "You think I should be grateful?" I challenged, my voice steadier than I felt. "Grateful for a husband who sees his wife as nothing more than a maid? Who values his ego over our relationship?" Derek's face darkened. "You know your place, Elaine. You gave up your job to be my wife, to take care of me in this house. That was your decision." "Yes, it was my decision," I shot back, feeling a surge of anger. "A decision I made because I believed in us, in our partnership. But this is not a partnership, it's tyranny." He scoffed. "Dramatic as always. You should know by now, Elaine, I'm the one who makes the decisions here. If you can't handle the simple tasks of a housewife, maybe you should reconsider your position in this marriage." Reconsider my position? The words hit me like a physical blow. All the years of putting his needs before mine, of enduring his criticisms and dismissals, of trying to be the perfect wife he demanded, it all came crashing down in that moment. I straightened, meeting his gaze head-on. "No, Derek, it's you who should reconsider. I'm not your property, and I refuse to be treated as such any longer. I deserve respect, and if you can't give me that, then maybe this marriage was a mistake." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air between us. Derek's face was a mask of shock and anger, his eyes burning into mine. "So that's how it is?" he said finally, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you can just walk away? You think you can survive without me?" I took a step back, feeling a flicker of fear, but I pushed it down. "I don't just think it, Derek. I know it. I'm not the scared, timid woman you think I am. I'm stronger than you know, and I won't be broken by your cruelty." For a moment, Derek looked as if he might say more, but then he turned on his heel and stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and a newfound determination. I knew this was just the beginning, that the road ahead would be difficult. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. I would find my way out of this. I would rediscover the woman I used to be, the woman I was meant to be. And Derek would come to regret ever underestimating me. The days following our confrontation were a blur of icy silences and veiled insults. Derek's contempt for me had become more apparent, his mask of charm and affection long since discarded. One evening, as I prepared dinner in our pristine kitchen, Derek sauntered in, his eyes scanning the spread with an air of disdain. "Is this what you call a meal? It looks as unappetizing as it probably tastes." I clenched my fists, feeling a familiar surge of frustration. "I've done my best, Derek. It's not easy managing everything around here on my own." He snorted, picking at the food with a fork. "Your best? That's laughable. You really are useless, aren't you? I work all day to provide for us, and this is the thanks I get? A mediocre dinner from a mediocre wife." His words stung, but I refused to let him see my pain. "I'm not your servant, Derek. I'm your wife. I deserve some respect, some appreciation." Derek looked up, his eyes cold. "Respect? For what? Keeping the house barely presentable? Even that seems to be beyond your capabilities. And don't even get me started on your lack of skills in the kitchen." I felt a lump form in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "I don't know why I bother trying. Nothing I do is ever good enough for you." "You bother because it's your duty," he replied sharply. "And you're right, it's never good enough. Maybe I made a mistake marrying someone so clearly out of her depth." His words echoed in my mind long after he left the room. I looked around at the house I had meticulously maintained, the meals I had painstakingly prepared, all for a man who couldn't care less. A sense of hopelessness washed over me, but beneath it there was a growing ember of anger, a burning need to prove him wrong. Later that week, I found myself confiding in Mara, my closest friend and confidant. Over coffee, I poured out my heart, the words spilling out in a torrent of frustration and despair. "He doesn't see me, Mara. He doesn't see the effort, the love I put into everything. It's like I'm invisible," I said, my voice breaking. Mara reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. "Elaine, you're so much more than he makes you out to be. You're strong, talented, capable. You don't need his validation to know your worth. Her words were a balm to my wounded soul, and in that moment something shifted within me. I realized that I had been seeking approval from a man who was incapable of giving it. I had been diminishing myself, trying to fit into the mold of the perfect wife he demanded, at the expense of my own identity. From that day on, I began to reclaim pieces of myself that I had lost along the way. I started secretly working on my graphic design skills, a passion I had abandoned for the sake of my marriage. With each design I created, I felt a sense of empowerment, a reminder of who I was before Derek tried to define me. And as I grew stronger, Derek's attempts to belittle me became less effective. His words still hurt, but they no longer had the power to break me. I was building a foundation for a new life, one where I was the architect of my own destiny. The atmosphere in our home had become a battlefield of unspoken words and simmering resentments. Derek's disdainful remarks had escalated, each one aimed to diminish and control me. But something within me had changed. The once cowering woman was slowly giving way to someone stronger, more defiant. One evening, as Derek arrived home, his usual air of self-importance was more pronounced. He dropped his briefcase by the door and surveyed the living room with a critical eye. "This place is a mess. What have you been doing all day?" I stood up, feeling a surge of defiance. "I've been working, Derek, on my graphic design projects." He laughed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Working? You call that a job? It's a hobby at best, Elaine. Don't flatter yourself." His words were meant to wound, but I stood my ground. "It's more than a hobby. I'm building something for myself, something that doesn't revolve around pleasing you." Derek's expression darkened. "You're getting bold, aren't you? Remember your place, Elaine. You're my wife. That's your primary role." I met his gaze, my voice steady. "My place is not just as your wife. I am my own person, with my own dreams and aspirations." He moved closer, his presence dominating the space. "You have no dreams outside of this house. I provide for you. I give you everything you need. You should be grateful." Grateful. That word again. It echoed in my mind, mocking me. Grateful? For being treated like a possession? For having my aspirations and efforts constantly belittled? No, Derek. I'm not grateful. I'm suffocated. For a moment he seemed taken aback, his facade slipping, but he quickly regained his composure, his voice laced with venom. "You're nothing without me, Elaine. You think you can survive on your own? You'll come crawling back, begging for my forgiveness." His words were meant to break me, but they only fueled my resolve. "I won't be crawling back to you, Derek. I'm stronger than you think." As the days passed, my secret work on graphic design projects became my sanctuary. Each piece I created was a testament to my creativity and resilience. My conversations with Mara became more frequent, her words of encouragement, a lifeline in the storm that was my marriage. I knew that leaving Derek would not be easy. He had woven a web of control and dependence that I had unwittingly stepped into. But with each passing day, the web was loosening, the hold he had on me weakening. I began to plan my escape, each step calculated and deliberate. I opened a separate bank account, securing my earnings from my freelance work. I reached out to a lawyer, discreetly inquiring about the divorce process. But most importantly, I began to rebuild the self-esteem that Derek had so systematically tried to destroy. I looked in the mirror and saw not a broken woman, but someone who was slowly piecing herself back together, someone who was ready to fight for her freedom. And as I lay in bed each night, listening to Derek's steady breathing, I knew that the time for whispers of rebellion was coming to an end. Soon it would be time for bold action, for reclaiming the life that was rightfully mine. The morning sun cast a warm glow through the curtains, but the atmosphere in our house remained cold and unyielding. Derek's contempt had become a daily ordeal, but my resolve had only strengthened. As I sat at the kitchen table, working on a graphic design project, Derek entered, his expression one of derision. "Still playing at your little hobby, I see. When will you realize it's pointless?" I didn't look up from my screen. "It's not pointless, Derek. It's my career, and it's thriving, unlike your opinion of it." He scoffed, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "A career? Don't make me laugh. You're a housewife, Elaine, nothing more. Your place is here, taking care of me, not indulging in these childish fantasies." I felt a flash of anger but kept my composure. My place is wherever I choose it to be. And right now it's here, building a future for myself. Derek slammed his cup down, coffee splashing over the rim. You have no future outside of this house, Elaine. I won't allow it. His attempt to intimidate me was evident, but I no longer felt the fear that once gripped me. You don't get to decide my future, Derek. I'm not your property. I'm a person with my own dreams and ambitions. He leaned in, his face inches from mine, his voice a menacing whisper. You'll never succeed. You're weak, dependent on me for everything. You'll come crawling back, mark my words. I stood up, meeting his gaze. I won't be crawling back to anyone, Derek. I'm stronger than you'll ever know. The days that followed were a tumultuous mix of silent treatments and bitter arguments. Derek's attempts to belittle me became more desperate, his words more cutting. But with each barb, my determination only grew. My work as a graphic designer was gaining traction, my designs being noticed by larger clients. I was building a portfolio that spoke of talent and creativity, a far cry from the hobby Derek so scornfully dismissed. Mara, ever my pillar of support, was a constant source of encouragement. You're doing amazing, Elaine, she would say. You're proving him wrong every single day. And she was right. With each project I completed, each client I impressed, I was rewriting the narrative Derek had tried to impose on me. I was no longer the voiceless shadow in his life. I was becoming a force in my own right. The turning point came one evening, as Derek returned from work. He found me in the living room, my laptop open, displaying a particularly intricate design I had just completed. He glanced at the screen, a sneer forming on his lips. What's this? Another one of your little projects? I looked up, a sense of pride swelling within me. Yes, it's my latest project, and it's not little. It's for a major client, one who recognizes my talent. Derek's sneer faltered, his eyes betraying a flicker of surprise. A major client? I don't believe you. I stood, closing my laptop with a satisfying snap. Believe it or not, Derek, it's true. I'm succeeding, despite your constant attempts to undermine me. I'm building a life for myself, a life where I don't need your approval or your support. For a moment, there was silence, the tension between us palpable. Then, Derek turned and walked away, his usual retorts unspoken. It was a small victory, but a significant one. I knew that the battle was far from over, but for the first time I felt a real sense of hope. I was taking back control of my life, one step at a time, and with each step I was moving closer to freedom, to a future where I was the master of my own destiny. The day had arrived when the facade of our marriage could no longer be upheld. The air was thick with anticipation, a prelude to the storm that was about to erupt. Derek came home to find me packing my belongings, my graphic design equipment neatly stored in boxes. His face registered shock, then anger. What the hell do you think you're doing, Elaine? I continued packing, my hands steady. I'm leaving, Derek. I can't stay in this toxic environment any longer. I'm suffocating. He laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. Leaving? To go where? You think you can survive out there without me? You're delusional. I zipped up the last bag, turning to face him. I'm not delusional, Derek. I'm awake. I've realized that I don't need you to survive. In fact, I'm better off without you. His face contorted in rage. You'll come back. You'll see how hard it is, and you'll come crawling back to me. I shook my head, a sense of liberation washing over me. I won't be coming back. My work as a graphic designer is taking off. I have clients, projects, a career. I'm not the helpless woman you think I am. Derek stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. You think you're something special because you've got a few clients? You're nothing, Elaine. You'll always be nothing without me. I stood my ground, my voice firm. I'm not nothing, Derek. I'm more than you ever gave me credit for, and I'm going to prove it. He reached out, attempting to grab my arm, but I stepped back. Don't touch me, Derek. It's over. I'm leaving, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. For a moment, he looked like he might lash out, but then he composed himself, his voice dripping with disdain. Fine, leave. See if I care. You'll be begging to come back before you know it. I picked up my bags, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. I won't be begging for anything. Goodbye, Derek. As I walked out the door, I didn't look back. The weight of the years of belittlement and control seemed to fall away with each step I took. I was embarking on a new journey, one where I was in control of my destiny. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready. Ready to face the world on my own terms, ready to show Derek and anyone else who doubted me that I was capable, strong, and independent. And as I drove away from the house that had been my prison, I felt a surge of empowerment. I was no longer Elaine, Derek's wife. I was Elaine, the graphic designer, the artist, the survivor. In the weeks following my departure, I found both solace and challenge in my newfound independence. My career as a graphic designer flourished, each project a stepping stone towards greater achievements. Meanwhile, Derek's world was unraveling, his true nature exposed for all to see. One afternoon, Mara called me with unexpected news. "Elaine, have you heard about Derek?" I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to know. "No, what happened?" "He's been fired," Mara said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Apparently, his performance had been declining for months, and after you left, it just got worse. He's lost his job." I felt a mix of shock and vindication. Derek, who had always prided himself on his career, now faced the consequences of his arrogance. "I can't say I'm surprised," I replied. "He was so focused on controlling me that he let his own life fall apart." "But that's not all," Mara continued. "He's been trying to reach out to you. He's called me a few times, asking if I knew where you were." I felt a chill run down my spine. Derek's persistence was unsettling, but I was determined not to let it shake me. "I've moved on, Mara. He's a part of my past now." In the following days, Derek's attempts to contact me became more desperate. He left voicemails, sent emails, each one oscillating between pleas for reconciliation and angry accusations. But I stood firm, ignoring his attempts to drag me back into his toxic orbit. As my career took off, I was invited to showcase my work at a prominent design exhibition. It was a moment of triumph, a testament to my hard work and talent. I stood among my peers, my designs displayed for all to see, feeling a sense of accomplishment that I had never experienced with Derek. The exhibition was also where karma made its grand appearance. Derek, looking disheveled and defeated, showed up unannounced. He approached me, his eyes searching for some semblance of the control he once had. "Elaine," he started, his voice unsteady. "I need you. I've lost everything. Please, take me back." I looked at him, seeing the man I once thought I loved, now just a shadow of his former self. "Derek, you haven't lost everything. You threw it away. You chose your ego over our marriage, your pride over our happiness." He reached out, but I stepped back. "Please, Elaine, I'll change. I'll do anything." I shook my head. "It's too late, Derek. I've moved on. I've found success and happiness, things I could never have with you." As I walked away, leaving Derek standing alone amidst the crowd, I realized that this was my final goodbye. The chapter of my life that included Derek was now firmly closed. In the months that followed, I heard snippets of Derek's continuing downfall. He struggled to find work, his reputation tarnished by his own actions. The man who once held himself so high had fallen, a victim of his own making. Meanwhile, my career soared. My designs were featured in magazines, my client list grew, and I found joy in my work that I had never known before. I had turned my life around, not just surviving, but thriving. As I sat in my new studio, surrounded by my artwork and the accolades of my hard-earned success, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The sun streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the room, mirroring the lightness I felt in my heart. Mara visited me that afternoon, her face bright with a smile as she looked around. "Elaine, you've done it. You're truly an inspiration." I smiled back, a sense of contentment washing over me. "It's been a journey, Mara, but every step was worth it." We sat down with cups of coffee, the aroma blending with the scent of fresh paint and paper. "Do you ever think about Derek?" Mara asked cautiously. I paused, the memories surfacing briefly. "I do, sometimes, but not with anger or regret. He was a part of my path, a difficult chapter that led me to where I am now." Mara nodded, understanding in her eyes. "And now you're free, living the life you were meant to." "Yes," I agreed, gazing out the window. "Free to create, to live, to be me. Derek's hold on me, his attempts to diminish me, they're just echoes of the past now." The conversation shifted to my upcoming projects, the excitement of new challenges and opportunities. But as Mara spoke, I found my thoughts drifting back to the person I was when I was with Derek. That Elaine was like a distant shadow, a reminder of how far I had come. After Mara left, I took a moment to savor the quiet of my studio. The struggles, The pain, the liberation, they had all woven together to create the tapestry of my life. And in that tapestry, the dark threads served only to make the bright colors shine even brighter. I realized then that my story was not just about escaping Derek's shadow. It was about discovering my own light, the strength, resilience, and talent that had always been within me, waiting to be acknowledged and embraced. As the day gave way to evening, I looked at the designs lining the walls of my studio. Each one was a piece of me, a part of my journey. I had not only survived, I had thrived. And in thriving, I had found a peace that was more profound than any revenge. The chapter of my life with Derek had ended, but my story was just beginning. A story of triumph, of finding joy in the midst of sorrow, of rising from the ashes to create something beautiful. As the last rays of the sun faded, I turned off the lights in my studio and stepped out into the cool evening air. The world lay before me, vast and full of possibilities. And I, Elaine, once a shadow, now a source of light, was ready to embrace whatever came next.